Hello, and welcome to Ending Physician Overwhelm. I'm your host, Dr. Megan Mello. I'm a family and obesity medicine physician, as well as a certified life coach for physicians. In this podcast, we talk about how the learned habits of people-pleasing, perfectionism, and a lack of boundaries show up in our lives and how they contribute to burnout, exhaustion, and overwhelm. The healthcare system is broken, my friends, but let's not wait for it to be fixed in order to feel better. Well, hello, my friends, and welcome to the last episode of 2024. So if you're listening to this episode in real time on the day it comes out, it is coming out on the last day of 2024. And of course, as we typically do, the end of the year, the start of a new one tends to bring a time of reflection as well as triggering our perfectionist self. So, what we're going to do today is walk through a process to be able to close out your year in an excellent, healthy way and ring in a new year, but without the perfectionist trappings of thinking that things are automatically going to be different on, of course, January 1st of a new year. But we can translate this, of course, into all sorts of other places, especially the first day of the week, the first day of the month, the first day of a new year. Whenever we're approaching one of these new first days of something, or maybe the first day of a new job, it's very easy to fall into this trap of thinking that I'm magically going to be a different person. I'm not going to face any challenges. I'm not going to ever be in a bad mood or have a headache or name the circumstance, right, where we fall short of what we expect of ourselves. So instead of falling into that trap and thinking that, again, with the change into the new year, things are magically going to be different. We are not going to face those challenges. We are not going to have those feelings. Let's think about this differently. I invite you as we talk to jot down some questions that I'm going to ask and give yourself some time and space to be able to really answer them, because this is a very dynamic activity where we are looking at the past year and looking forward to a new one. It's not necessarily about goal setting. It's more about really reflecting and using those reflections to help guide our intentions for the new year. So let's get going. So, the first thing that I want us to spend some time on is counting up our successes, our wins, the things that have gone well this year. This is a very difficult exercise for most of the physicians that I talk to. We are so hard on ourselves. We are so good at looking at places where we don't feel like we're meeting the mark. Now, if you've listened to just about any episode, you have heard me say over and over again, we are trained to look for the bad stuff. Not only are we trained to think about differential diagnosis and what's the worst possible explanation for this patient having these symptoms, we are certainly trained in that, but we are also conditioned to be quite hard on ourselves. Going through college and doing what you needed to do to get into medical school, getting into medical school and wanting to succeed, right? We needed to pass all these tests. We needed to get good letters of recommendation and grades and scores on, the step tests and all of those things. Going into residency, right? You needed to do well there. You needed also to go through your rotations and be seen as smart and capable, and all of those challenges, doing so while you were working very long hours with very little sleep, very little communication with friends and family members, very challenging times. To get through those periods, you needed to be hard on yourself. You needed to follow rules. You needed to make up rules internally in order to be able to meet the marks. We are conditioned to be very hard on ourselves in order to get through those things. But for so many of us, we continue thinking that way. And when we continue thinking that way, we do not recognize our successes. We will constantly be nagging at ourselves and wondering why we're not further along. There has been a place for that, but it is not helpful when we are out in our real life world and self. We need to acknowledge the things that are going well. We need to sit in them. We need to celebrate them. We need to be grateful to ourselves and other people that have helped us with that in order to have the healthy, balanced lives that we are seeking. So that is what we are asking ourselves to do here is count up the successes. What are the things this year that have gone well, especially things that you have chosen to do, things that you have accomplished, things that you are grateful for? One of the things that I do every single time I meet with one of my physician clients, whether that's one on one or in groups, is we celebrate our wins. So we always kick off talking about the things that have gone well. There's a method to the madness. I did not invent this as a coaching tool, but I force people to look at what has gone well and to celebrate and recognize their successes because that tunes our brain into noticing the good things more often. Again, we are so conditioned to notice the negative, to be scanning for danger, that that is a default. But acknowledging the good stuff, that is a skill that we can learn, and it is so helpful. So, one thing that if you're watching me on YouTube, you can see is I keep this awesome notebook, which is things I've done that remind me that I'm a badass. This comes from WTF Notebooks. It is great. I got the calendar version of this. And so for 2024, I have been recording my daily wins. Now, am I perfect about that? No. You will see some days in there that I didn't write anything down. But for the most part, every night I sit down and I write something down from the day that has gone well, something that I'm grateful for, something that I've accomplished, something I'm excited about. And before we hopped on to record, I sat down and took a look and I was reviewing all these things that I was so happy about this year, and it lifts you up. And so, if you are someone who already regularly journals, or maybe you would like to, again, we can fall into really perfectionist thinking about I'm magically going to spend, a long time every day reflecting on my day. If you're going to do that, go for it. But a lot of us don't have the time and energy to do that, but we might have the time or energy to sit down and acknowledge something that has gone well. So every day I sit down and I write a win or two. I also keep track of the exercise that I've done because for me, that is something that helps me to see my progress. When I notice that I am going for my morning walk or doing my strength workouts, I feel good. And so that is another thing that I write down, and it helps keep momentum because I don't want to break that chain. Again, it is not about perfectionism, but it is about tuning my brain to be able to notice the good things, to catalog them so I can look back. If I'm having a rough day, I can look in this notebook and I can say, oh, yeah, things really have gone well. I really have made progress. And that feels so good. A few weeks back, we were talking again about a book that I love called The Gap versus the Gain by Dan Sullivan and Dr. Benjamin Hardy. And they talk about how when we stay in the gain, when we are focused on the progress that we've made rather than the distance between where we are and where we want to be, we will be much more happy and fulfilled, and we will actually travel further in our goals than if we're really only ever focused on the ideal. So, wonderful book. Highly recommend it. That can be something that you pick up in 2025 if you've never read it, in order to be able to help facilitate this idea of counting up our successes. Jotting a win down every day is something that you can do. That's a very simple, tangible thing, but it will help to tune your brain into the good stuff. All right, what's next? So, next, I invite you to think about and reflect on the challenges that you faced this year. There are things that you may have wanted to do, things that you may have had expectations around. There may have been major disappointments that you faced. We all have those. And this is an opportunity to sit down and just think about it for a minute. Again, there are some things that you probably wanted to do that you didn't get to. And I want you to notice what happened, what you wanted to happen. And if there is an opportunity for you to think about doing something differently, do that, but do it with kindness. If you wanted to be exercising regularly and you really just didn't do that this year, what contributed to that? And if we look at that with kindness, then we can say, I didn't make plans for it. I didn't put time on my schedule somewhere. I didn't make it easy for myself. Rather than thinking, oh, I'm lazy. Oh, I'm never going to get it right. Those thoughts are disempowering. But seeing that, yeah, I didn't make that goal. And in order to make that goal, I'm going to need to make some time for it. That allows us to work on the problem of fixing that, right? Making some time for it. So, without going too far into setting intentions for the new year in this step, just looking at what were those things that were challenging this year? What do you need to let go of? If we drag the energy of should into the new year, ugh, I should be exercising. Ugh, I should be faster at my notes. Ugh, I should be a better, smarter, fill in the blank here. We are bringing with us heaviness, judgment, and just a lot of negativity. And I'm not proposing that we flip ourselves into some kind of magical woo. I'm asking you to recognize the challenges that you faced, to incorporate what we just did in looking at our wins and successes and recognizing the hard work that we do, the real challenges that you faced, right? Maybe you've had colleagues or staff leave and you wanted to be able to get your notes done more quickly, but you are rooming your own patients, you're cleaning rooms in between visits, you've got much higher demand, you're more frequently double or triple booked, and you're not getting to it. Honor where you are, honor those very real obstacles, and be kind to yourself. Say, I was hoping that this would happen, but I faced these other challenges. Anyone else in my position would have had similar struggles. There's nothing wrong with me. And I can move through this and figure out what will I do next. Do you see how that's a much kinder approach than feeling like we're dumb, broken, just not meeting the mark? We acknowledge the challenge. We can look and say, yeah, I am disappointed that I'm not further along, without dumping ourselves into this pot of should. I should be better. I should be faster. I should be smarter. That does not help us to move along in our journey. And I'm guessing you know what that feels like. Let's let it go. Acknowledge the challenges, acknowledge the disappointments, let them go. If you need to take a pause and shake it out, right? Just shake your hands like you're flicking them so hard. You're trying to get every drop of water. You're shaking yourself like a dog. Let it go. Feel a lightness, and that will bring us into moving into our next step, which is, what are you excited about in moving forward. So, of course, the new year energy, right? New year, new you. We get that magical thinking. We set resolutions. We set audacious goals. There's nothing wrong with that. But if you find yourself making the same resolutions and goals every year and imagining this ideal that's unattainable of, well, I'm going to train for a marathon, I'm going to get an extra board certification, and all of my kids are going to be driven by me to their 13 different activities, we've got some magical thinking there that is not working, right? And it's not going to work. So we're going to put down magical thinking here. But what would you like for yourself this year? If you would like to be someone who exercises more regularly or trains for a marathon or some other sort of exercisey type fitness health goal, what is the goal and what does it take to get there? Right? If someone is going to train for a marathon, that doesn't just happen. There is an intentionality that is required in order to be able to lay out the steps, in order to be able to ramp up to that. We can see that very clearly in somebody who wants to train for a marathon. But even if you are someone who wants to be someone who exercises regularly, sitting in that should energy rather than making some plans and making some space for becoming someone who exercises, shoulding won't work here. Hoping that you'll just desire to start running when that's not something that you've ever desired to do before is not going to help. That's that magical thinking again. So, if we want to be someone who exercises regularly, what needs to happen? We need to make some decisions about where is that exercise going to go? What activity am I going to do? How much time am I going to commit to it right now? If I want to be someone who exercises regularly and I don't currently do anything, I might need to start with a goal of 10 minutes a day, a few days a week. And I'm going to need to figure out where does that go? We are living such busy, challenging lives. We need to put it in its place. If you want to be someone who spends more time reading, where are you going to put that time? I promise you that you have time for some of these things. We think that we don't, but pull out your phone right now and look in the settings to see how long are you spending on apps that you don't really need to be on. This is your Facebook, this is your Instagram, right? Your phone can tell you, oh, turns out I'm spending an hour a day scrolling Instagram. My friends, if you want to be someone who exercises or reads books or things like that, you're going to need to take some time out of Instagram or whatever it is that you're doing and put it into the thing that you are having some intentions about. I promise you, you have just a little bit of time. Now, some of us are also going to need to set some intentionality about boundaries. So if you want to be someone who exercises, but you routinely are spending multiple 12-hour days in the operating room, what needs to happen? Where do you need to say no? What is going on in your professional life and your personal life that you need to do differently in order to make some time and space for yourself, right? This is the place where we start to look at that. And if I want to have a different outcome, if I want to accomplish some other personal or professional goals, I'm going to need to carve out some intentionality. We need to look at this process and we need to decide with kindness, with understanding that we are normal human beings with bodies that occasionally get sick or hurt, with needs to spend time with people that we love, with the understanding that unexpected things happen to ourselves at work and at home. With kindness, how can we approach ourselves and approach our intentions here looking forward? Do we need to stop doing something? Do we need to ask for help with something or hire someone to help us with a task or to ask the people that we have hired to take on more responsibility and spend some time coaching and training them so that we have more time for the things that we desire doing? This is potentially a big piece, and I don't want us to make it too complicated, but just to see that in order to create a different experience for our new year, our new week, our new month, whatever it is that we are looking at moving forward, we need to spend a little bit of time thinking about how we become the person who has that habit, how we become the person who achieves that, right? If you want to train for a marathon, you're going to need to start walking or running or jogging or wherever you are in order to move along that process. If you want to be someone who reads regularly, you're going to need to decide when are you going to do that. And you're going to need to have books or whatever you're going to read available, right? We need to have a little intentionality there. If you have a new professional goal, maybe you want to open your own business, maybe you want to become board certified in something new, you're going to need to figure out, where do I spend that time? How am I going to budget time to dedicate to that in order to acquire the skills or the knowledge or the expertise or the certification, whatever it is? If you want to be someone who takes more vacation, you're going to need to sit down and look at, what are the times that I want to be on vacation, and put in those vacation requests. You're also going to need some time for planning or to delegate it to someone else who's going to plan. That was something that I worked on this year that was really pretty successful. When I was in 2023 looking at what I wanted for this year, 2024, I knew that I wanted to be traveling more, and I wanted to be traveling more as a family. I knew that I had some professional things that I wanted to travel and participate in, and I knew that I wanted to take some intentional trips, just me and my husband. And I was able to do that, and it's been so much fun. It's been a great thing. Now, it has required me to look ahead, plan the time off, to be able to spend some time planning the trips and thinking about it. But I'm so grateful that I did. It's time well spent, even though, yes, it's a little bit frustrating. You know that there are some things that you want for yourself. And if you want to travel more, if you want to go to more conferences, if you want to speak at conferences, you need to spend a little time focusing on, what is it that I want? What are the things that need to happen? Those really tangible things like blocking out your schedule, requesting the time off, um, you're registering for whatever thing. If you want to be a speaker, right, you need to apply usually, or contact people and start asking. There are some very real steps. The goal is not to sit down and overwhelm yourself and do all those things right now, but just to recognize that those things will take some time and intention, and they are not going to magically happen. The same way you will not magically start running marathons if you currently don't move your body at all. The same thing is true for these other personal or professional goals. So spend some time thinking about, what do I want for myself in 2025? What do I want for myself? And what are some steps that I'm going to need to take to get going? If you take a little time and sit down and go through this process, celebrating your wins and successes from this year, acknowledging the challenges and seeing what lessons you can pull out, and then intentionally sitting down and thinking about what you're excited about and what you are intending for yourself in the new year, you will create a very different experience of 2025 than 2024. And yes, there are going to be things that happen in the new year that you can't currently see. Some of them will be great, and some of them will not be great. There are going to be the usual ups and downs and challenges and sicknesses and injuries and surprises. Those things are going to happen. We can't always know what those things are going to be. And if pandemic taught us anything, it taught us that things can be very uncertain and we can have to face a lot of uncertainty. Think about what happened in March of 2020 when schools closed and clinics and hospitals shut down and were overwhelmed with this brand new virus. There was all sorts of things going on. We moved through that period, and yeah, maybe 2020 did not go as we wanted. We did make it through, and we did have some successes that year, even if it may be harder to pull them out during very difficult circumstances like that. But there is still value in sitting down, whether you had a great year, a tough year, or something in the middle, doing some reflection, acknowledge your wins and successes, recognize the challenges, and pull the lessons out, and spend a little time thinking about what it is that you want for your future and what steps are going to be necessary in order to make that happen. My friends, thank you for an excellent, wonderful, fulfilling 2024. It has had its ups and downs and challenges for me as it has for you. And I'm so grateful that you are here with me each week, tuning in and doing this work alongside with me. I'm going to leave it at that. Thank you. I wish all the best for you in 2025. And I invite you to really sit down and lean into this process. Let's do this. All right, take care. Well, that's our show for today. Thank you as always for listening. To learn more about my coaching programs, head to www.healthierforgood.com. And if you love this podcast, please drop us a review on iTunes or support the show by clicking the link in the show notes. Until next time, take care.